Tonight, we think of the Dutch Golden Age, and our minds fill with images of grand canvases. Rembrandt's merchants, Vermeer's quiet rooms bathed in impossible light. We imagine a world of bustling trade, profound art, and brilliant discovery. But that is the finished portrait. Tonight, we are going behind the canvas into the quiet, dusty reality of the hands that shaped that age, not with a paintbrush, but with grit and glass and almost endless patience. As you settle in and find a comfortable position, if you enjoy these quiet journeys into the past, feel free to follow or subscribe to this channel. It helps ensure these stories can continue. For tonight's community question, I'm curious what you think. What is the most time you have ever spent working on a single, personal project with your hands? Something that required your complete and undivided focus. Leave a quiet comment if you feel like sharing. There's no right or wrong answer, only the shared experience of quiet dedication. Now though, it's time to let all of that go. Let your eyes drift shut. Take a slow, gentle breath in, and as you exhale, feel the weight of the day begin to lift from your shoulders. Release the tension in your jaw, the tightness in your brow. Allow your body to grow heavy, sinking softly into the surface beneath you. Your only task now is to listen, to allow the sounds to paint a picture in your mind, to let yourself drift away from the world of now and into the quiet candle-lit stillness of the past. The bells of the Nieuw Kerk are ringing, and you are standing in your workshop in 17th century Delft. You don't need to see the clock tower to know the time. You feel it in your bones, in the quality of the light, and in the sound of the bells themselves. It is the morning chime, a sound that doesn't so much start your day as it confirms the day has already begun. The tolling notes ripple across the still, dark water of the canal, just outside your window, their vibrations filtering through the leaded panes of glass, becoming softer, more muted, by the time they reach you. They are less a command and more a quiet reminder, the steady heartbeat of the city you call home. The air inside your workshop is cool and still. You can feel it on your cheeks and the backs of your hands. It carries a scent that is uniquely yours, a complex perfume of your life's work. There is the sweet, waxy smell of beeswax from the polishing compounds, the sharp, nutty aroma of linseed oil used to treat the wooden handles of your tools, and beneath it all, the faint, dusty scent of old stone and aging mortar. It's a smell of creation, of patience, a smell that would be entirely foreign to a modern nose accustomed to sterile plastics and artificial air. To you, it is simply the smell of morning. Your workshop is not a grand studio. It is a small, narrow room on the ground floor of a tall, gabled house. The floor is made of wide wooden planks, worn smooth by your constant pacing between the workbench and the lathe. The stone walls are bare, save for a few simple wooden shelves holding your tools, each one nestled in its proper place. There is a sense of profound order here, not of obsessive neatness, but of pure function. Every object has a purpose and a home. There is no clutter, because clutter is a distraction, and your work cannot abide distraction. The most important feature of the room is the window. It faces north, overlooking the canal. This is by design. A north-facing window never receives the direct, harsh glare of the sun. Instead, it provides a consistent, cool, and diffuse light throughout the day. It is a painter's light, a jeweler's light, and it is most certainly a lens grinder's light. This steady, shadowless illumination is the most vital tool you own, more precious than any grinding powder or lathe, for it is light itself that you are trying to master. You stand before your workbench. It is a massive thing, crafted from heavy oak, its surface scarred and stained from years of labor. It is more than a piece of furniture. It is your partner, an anchor in your quiet world, its solidity absorbing the vibrations of your work. And upon this bench, resting on a worn square of dark leather, is the reason you rose before the sun. It is a single, rough block of Venetian glass. You reach out and pick it up. The first thing that surprises you, as it always does, is its weight. It feels heavier than it looks, dense and substantial in your palms. The second is the cold. It has held the chill of the night within its body, and it leaches the warmth from your fingertips. It is a piece of the earth, born of sand and fire, sailed across the sea from the master glassmakers of Murano. To acquire such a piece is an investment, a significant portion of your earnings, a gamble on your own skill. If you fail, if the glass shatters or reveals a fatal flaw deep within, the loss is entirely your own. You raise the block to the morning light filtering through the window. Your gaze is not casual, it is an intense, analytical communion. A modern person might see a simple, semi-clear block of old glass, perhaps interesting for its imperfections. You see something entirely different. You see a universe of possibility and peril. Your trained eye doesn't just see the surface. It penetrates deep within, tracing the faint, milky holes of unevenly mixed silica, searching for the tiny shimmering disks of trapped air bubbles, hunting for the almost invisible hairline fractures born from its cooling. These are not charming quirks of character. They are traps. A single one of these flaws, if positioned in the heart of what will become your lens, would distort the light, bend the image, and render weeks of painstaking work utterly worthless. Your mind, accustomed to this deep focus, begins to map the block. You see pathways through the imperfections, charting a course to the clearest, most immaculate section of the glass. It is like a navigator studying a coastline, looking for the one safe harbor. You see a region about the size of a guilder coin that seems almost perfect. This will be your starting point. This is where the lens lives, waiting for you to free it. Your work, you understand, is not an act of pure creation. It is an act of liberation, of carving away everything that is not the lens. Your decision made, you lay the block back on the leather cloth. Your movements are economical, unhurried. There is no wasted energy in this room. You select a small hammer from its place on the shelf. The head is sharp, like a tiny chisel, its wooden handle dark and smooth from the oils of your hand. You also select a heavier, duller mallet. You are not preparing for an act of violence, but one of delicate persuasion. Holding the block steady with one hand, you place the sharp tip of the hammer against the edge of the glass, far from the precious, clear section you have identified. You are not trying to cut it yet. You are listening. You gently tap the end of the small hammer with the larger mallet. Tink, tink. The sound is high-pitched, sharp, the sound of solid, unforgiving integrity. You shift the hammer a fraction of an inch and tap again. Tink, tink, tock. A subtle change, a dullness to the note. You close your eyes, relying on your other senses. You can feel the slight difference in the vibration through your fingertips. Your ear, trained by thousands of such taps, registers the almost imperceptible shift in tone. You are listening for the glass to speak to you. You are listening for the lines of internal stress, the invisible pathways along which it is willing to break cleanly. To a modern mind, accustomed to laser cutters and diamond saws, this process would seem impossibly archaic, more like alchemy than science. But you understand the material in a way that technology cannot. You understand its nature. Brute force will only create a chaotic, unpredictable shatter, sending jagged shards flying across your workshop. Patience and attention, however, will persuade the glass to yield, to cleave along a straight, predictable line. You find the spot you are looking for. The tone is just right. It is a dull, muted thud, a sound that tells you there is a line of tension just beneath the surface. You pause. You take a steadying breath. This is a moment of commitment. You adjust your grip, raise the mallet, and with a single confident and perfectly measured strike, you bring it down onto the hammer. There is a loud, sharp crack. It is the loudest sound in the workshop all morning. A sudden exclamation in a long, quiet sentence. A fissure, clean as a razor's cut, races across the block, and a large, imperfect chunk of the glass falls away onto the leather. There is no explosion, no dangerous spray. It is a controlled, calculated separation. You have made the first cut. You spend the next several hours in this slow, rhythmic dance of observation and gentle percussion. Tap, tap, listen. Shift, tap, tap, listen, strike. With each successful cleavage, the block becomes smaller, more manageable. You are moving inwards, slowly isolating the flawless heart of the glass you identified earlier. Your back begins to ache from leaning over the bench. Your fingers grow numb from the cold and the pressure of holding the block. Hunger makes a distant complaint in your stomach, but you ignore it. Focus is a delicate state, and once broken, it is difficult to reclaim. The world outside the workshop, the clatter of wooden shoes on the cobblestones, the calls of merchants, the rumble of a distant cart, fades into a meaningless background hum. The only reality is the block of glass in your hands, the tool, and the changing quality of the light. Finally, you have it. Lying on the leather cloth is no longer a rough, heavy block, but a small, thick disc of glass, perhaps 2 fingers wide. It is still crude, its edges sharp and uneven, its faces cloudy from the percussive fractures. But it is pure. You pick it up and hold it to the light one last time. It is flawless. The milky halls are gone. The bubbles and fractures have been chipped away, left behind in the small pile of glassy shards you have swept to the side. What is left is potential. A blank slate. A promise of clarity. You run a calloused thumb over its rough surface. It is difficult for a modern person to comprehend the journey that has just begun. In a world of instant gratification, of mass production, the idea of spending weeks transforming this single, small object would seem like madness. But you do not see it that way. You feel a quiet, profound sense of satisfaction. Not the triumphant joy of a great victory, but the calm contentment of having completed the first, crucial stage of a long pilgrimage. You have passed the first gate. As you stand there, lost in thought, you become aware of a change in the room. The cool, even light from the north window has begun to soften, to warm into a gentle orange. The sun is setting. You look down at the floorboards and see long, peaceful shadows stretching from the legs of your workbench, painting dark stripes across the room. An entire day has passed in what felt like a few focused hours. You have not eaten, you have not rested. You have only worked, lost in the slow rhythm of your craft. You carefully place the glass disc in the center of the workbench, setting it down on the leather as if it were a jewel. For now, its work is done, and so is yours. You straighten up, feeling the pull and ache in your lower back, the stiffness in your neck. It's a familiar feeling, the physical price of your singular focus. You walk to the window and push open one of the small, leaded panes. The evening air floods in, cool and damp, carrying the scent of the canal and the distant aroma of wood smoke from a neighbor's hearth. The sky above the gabled rooftops is a deepening canvas of orange and purple. The day is ending, but your work is only just beginning. That small disc of glass sitting on your bench is a promise. It holds the potential for a perfect, spherical curve, for an unsullied clarity that might reveal a world hidden from every other eye in Delft. Tomorrow, the grinding will begin. But for tonight, you simply watch the light fade, a deep sense of peace settling over you. The blank disc is waiting, and it, like you, is full of unrealized potential. The sun sets slowly on the previous day's work, and the feeling of accomplishment still lingers with you, a quiet warmth in your chest. You remember the heft of the raw Venetian glass, the cold, stubborn potential held within it. You can almost still feel the patient, percussive vibration of the hammer in your hand, not a tool of brute force, but of persuasion, as you listen for the glass to tell you where it was willing to part. Now, as a new morning fills your workshop with the soft, grey light of Delft, your gaze falls upon the result of that communion. A clean, manageable disc of glass resting on the worn leather of your workbench. The air holds the familiar sense of linseed oil and old stone, but you know that today, a new aroma will join them, something sharper and more acrid. The long, silent conversation with the material is over. Today, the shaping begins, and with it comes the sound. Your first task is not with glass, but with fire and resin. In a small iron pot set over a brazier of glowing coals, you begin to gently warm a lump of dark, amber-colored pitch. This is your modern, sterile laboratory environment. The concept of fume hoods or filtered air is centuries away. Instead, as the pitch begins to soften and melt, it releases a thick, resinous scent that quickly fills the small room. It's a smell that clings to everything. To your clothes, to the wooden beams overhead, to your own skin. It's the smell of binding, of adhesion, of preparation. You poke at the slowly liquefying mass with a metal rod, your movements unhurried and precise. You've seen apprentices rush this step, overheating the pitch until it spits and smokes and fills the air with an acrid stench that burns the back of the throat. But you know better. Rushing is the enemy of your craft. Patience, your old master used to say, is a tool as essential as any hammer or file. You feel the gentle heat from the brazier on your face and hands. In the cool Dutch morning, it's a welcome warmth. But it's also a constant reminder of the danger. A careless move, a tipped pot, and you could be dealing with a burn that might fester and sicken you for months. There are no emergency rooms, no miracle creams, only folk remedies and a prayer. This simple act of melting pitch is layered with a low, humming level of risk that is entirely absent from the modern world. You might think of it as a simple chore, but in your reality, it's a delicate dance with cause and effect. Your inner monologue, the voice of a person from another time, quietly observes the profound difference. Every single task demands your complete attention. There is no multitasking here, no listening to a podcast while you work. There is only the pitch, the heat, and the quiet focus required to manage them. Once the pitch has reached the consistency of thick honey, you carry the pot carefully to your workbench, where your lathe waits. It is not the screaming, electric, powered machine you might imagine. It is a thing of beauty and simplicity, crafted from heavy, dark oak, its surfaces worn smooth and lustrous from decades of use. First by your master, and now by you. It is entirely human-powered. A simple treadle beneath the bench connects to a flywheel, allowing you to control the speed with the rhythmic pump of your foot. This machine is not an adversary to be conquered, but a partner in a slow, collaborative dance. You dip your rod into the warm pitch and expertly apply a perfect, circular dollop to the face of the lathe's wooden chuck. Then, you pick up the disc of glass. You feel its coolness in your palms for a moment, a final farewell to its unstructured form, before you press it firmly into the warm, yielding pitch. This, you know, is a moment of supreme importance. The glass must be perfectly centered. You have no laser guides, no digital calipers. You have only your eyes, your hands, and an instinct honed by thousands of hours of practice. You give the flywheel a gentle push with your hand, setting the glass into a slow rotation. You watch the outer edge, looking for any wobble, any deviation from a perfect circle of movement. You make a tiny adjustment, pressing one side a fraction of a millimeter deeper into the pitch, then another. Your breath is steady, your hands are still. For a modern person accustomed to tools that guarantee precision, this reliance on pure, trained instinct would be terrifying. The margin for error is non-existent. If the lens is off-center now, every subsequent hour of grinding will be wasted, creating a warped, useless piece of glass. You are not just setting the glass, you are setting the course for the next several weeks of your life. Finally, you are satisfied. You step back and allow the pitch to cool and harden, forming a bond as strong as any modern epoxy, cementing the glass blank to the machine that will give it its new form. With the blank secured, you turn your attention to the abrasives. They sit in a series of wooden bowls, progressing from coarse to fine. You will begin with the coarsest, a gritty, sharp sand that you yourself have sifted and washed. You scoop a handful into a nearby ceramic bowl and add a splash of clean water, mixing it with your bare fingers into a thick, wet slurry. The feeling is familiar, the rough texture of the sand a promise of the work to come. You take your position at the lathe, one foot finding its familiar place on the treadle. You take the grinding tool, a heavy brass cup with a concave curve that is the inverse of the convex curve you wish to create, and coat its surface with the wet sand. Then, you begin to pump the treadle. The workshop, which has been a place of quiet concentration, is now filled with a new sound. It starts as the flywheel begins to turn, a low hum of wood and leather. Then, you bring the brass tool, armed with its gritty slurry, into contact with the spinning face of the glass. The sound that erupts is shocking in its harshness. It is a loud, grating, rhythmic scrape, 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 a protest of abrasion, the sound of one hard surface violently tearing microscopic particles from another. This is the sound of shaping. It is not a gentle whisper. It is a raw and visceral noise that vibrates through the tool, up your arms, and into the very bones of your chest. You can feel the struggle through the heavy oak of the workbench. There is nothing elegant about this first stage. This is brute force, patiently and precisely applied. Hour after hour, this sound is your only companion. The chimes of the Nieuw Kerk mark the passing of time, but you barely notice them. Your world has shrunk to the spinning disk of glass, the pressure of the tool in your hands and the constant, grinding mantra of sand on glass. Your muscles begin to ache. Your back, your shoulders, the muscles in your leg pumping the treadle. They all burn with a low, steady fire. You live in a world without ergonomic chairs or cushioned floors. Your body is a part of the machine, the engine that drives this whole process, and it pays the price in constant fatigue. You might think you understand hard work, but this is different. This is the relentless, repetitive labor of the pre-industrial craftsman, a physical toll that is the necessary cost of creation. Your mind drifts to your old master, a stern man with hands as tough as old leather. You remember him watching you when you were just a boy, struggling at this very same lathe. He watched your frustration for a long time before he spoke, his voice as low and gravelly as the grinding itself. You think the sand is doing the work, he had said, but it is not. The sand is merely the messenger. It is patience that does the work. Patience is the finest abrasive of all. You did not understand him then. You thought it was just a poetic phrase. But now, after years at this bench, you understand its literal truth. Each pass of the grinding tool removes an amount of glass so infinitesimally small it is invisible. To create the perfect, sweeping curve of a lens requires millions upon millions of these passes. It is a task that cannot be rushed. It can only be endured. The act of standing here, of pushing through the ache in your body and the deafening noise, that is the abrasive. You are not just grinding the glass, you are grinding time itself into a new shape. As the sun climbs higher, casting a bright square of light on the dusty floor, you stop. The sudden silence is overwhelming, a physical presence that presses in on your ears. The only sound is your own heavy breathing and the faint, distant cry of gulls over the canal. You reach for a soft, damp cloth and lean over the lathe. With a gentle motion, you begin to wipe away the milky, grey slurry of sand, water, and ground glass that coats the surface of the blank. The action is one of revelation, like an archaeologist brushing dust from a long, hidden artifact. You are clearing away the chaos of the work to see what order, if any, has been created underneath. You lean in close, your eyes scrutinizing the surface. The glass is no longer transparent. You can't see through it at all. The grinding has transformed its clear, placid face into an opaque, frosted landscape of microscopic scratches and pits. To a casual observer, you would appear to have ruined a perfectly good piece of glass. It looks like it has been scarred, damaged, made less of what it was. But you see something else. You tilt the disc back and forth in the light, watching the way the diffused daylight plays across its surface. And there it is. It's faint, a mere suggestion, but it is undeniably there, the first hint of a perfect, spherical curve. A slow, quiet feeling of satisfaction spreads through you. This is the moment you work for. It is not a grand victory, but a small, profound confirmation that your patience, your effort, and your guiding hand are working in concert. You have taken a flat, inert slice of material and imposed upon it the first, most crucial law of optics. You have bent its very nature, teaching it the first letter in the language of light. The journey ahead is still immensely long. You will spend days, perhaps weeks, moving to ever finer grits of abrasive, softening this harsh sound into a gentle whisper, transforming this opaque surface into one of impossible clarity. But this first step, the loudest and roughest of them all, is complete. You have taken potential and given it form. You look from the opaque lens on your lathe to the rippling, distorted reflection of the sky in the canal outside your window. Both bend the light. One does so with chaos and fleeting beauty. The other, you feel with a deep and certain conviction, is on its way to a state of focused, permanent perfection. And for now, that is enough. The harsh, rhythmic scraping that had been the soundtrack to your life for days has finally fallen silent. The memory of it lingers in your ears, a phantom sound you can still feel in the bones of your jaw. The work with the coarse sand is over, that initial, violent stage of shaping. On your workbench, the glass disc is no longer an uneven blank but a recognizable form, its surface an opaque, milky white, like a cataract on the eye of the world. It holds the first promise of a perfect curve, a truth you carved from its raw potential through sheer, monotonous effort. The memory of your master's words, a rare and precious currency, echoes in the new quiet of the workshop. Patience is the finest abrasive of all. You feel the truth of that now, not as a lesson learned, but as an ache deep in the muscles of your shoulders and back. You have shaped the glass, but the glass, and the time spent with it, has also shaped you. The days now begin to lose their sharp edges, blending one into the next, marked not by the sun or the chiming bells of the Niu Kirk, but by the grade of emery you use. You have moved past the coarse sand, a tool of brute force, and now you begin the true refinement. You carefully set aside the first bag and open another. Its contents are dark grey powder, like dust from a moth's wing, still grainy but noticeably finer to the touch. This is a new stage, a new conversation with the glass. You sprinkle a small amount onto the cast iron grinding tool, add a few drops of water, and then you begin again. The sound is the first thing you notice. It is no longer a grating scrape, a sound of violent removal. It has softened, mellowed into a continuous, gritty shushing. It's a gentler sound, but more insistent, a constant whisper that fills the small room. It is the sound of 1,000 tiny blades, shaving away impossibly thin layers of glass, a far more intimate act than the heavy-handed gouging that came before. You work for hours, bent over the lathe, your body a living part of the machine. Your left hand turns the crank in a steady, unthinking rhythm, while your right hand guides the tool over the surface of the spinning lens. The pressure must be perfect, an unchanging constant transmitted from your mind, through your shoulder, down your arm, and into your fingertips. Too much, and you will create a depression, a valley on the glass that will take days to correct. Too little, and you will accomplish nothing, polishing a single high spot while the rest of the surface remains untouched. Your entire world contracts to this single point of contact, this interface between iron, emery, and glass. You can feel the subtle vibrations travel up the tool, a humming monologue that tells you everything you need to know. A slight change in pitch signals that the slurry is drying out. A subtle drag means the emery is breaking down and needs to be refreshed. These are sensations you don't merely perceive, you inhabit them. After what might be a day or two, you cannot be sure. You wipe the grey paste from the lens. You hold it to the weak daylight filtering through the window. It is still opaque, still milky, but you fancy you can see a change. The surface has a new satin-like sheen, a dull luster that wasn't there before. A modern mind would call this reducing the surface roughness, but to you, it feels more profound. You are calming the glass, taming the chaos you introduced with the coarser grit, persuading it toward a state of placid perfection. You clean the workbench meticulously, wiping away every last grain of the used emery. Contamination is your greatest enemy. A single, larger particle from a previous stage, caught in your slurry, could create a deep, ruinous scratch, undoing an entire week's work in a single rotation of the lathe. This fastidiousness isn't about cleanliness as you might think of it. It's about control, a desperate and necessary imposition of order on a universe of chaotic dust. And so you move on to the next grade. The powder is finer still, darker, softer. The process is identical. The spreading of the paste, the steady turning of the handle, the patient pressure of the tool. But again, the world changes. The sound softens further. The gritty shushing becomes a smoother hiss, a sound like fine silk being drawn over a stone floor. The vibrations in your hand lessen, becoming a faint, high-frequency hum. The work grows more difficult now, more demanding of your attention. The imperfections you are hunting are becoming smaller, more subtle. They are no longer chasms to be leveled but gentle, rolling hills to be patiently worn away. Your focus must narrow, your senses must sharpen. You find yourself relying less on what you can see and more on what you can feel. This is the strange inversion of the lens grinder's art. To create an instrument of perfect sight, you must learn to work blind. You close your eyes. You shut out the distracting dance of light and shadow in the workshop, the slow crawl of a spider on the ceiling, the flicker of a boat passing on the canal outside your window. You let the world dissolve, and you listen with your skin. With your eyes closed, your fingertips become the arbiters of reality. You can feel a microscopic ridge on the lens's surface as a faint, dragging hesitation under the tool. A slight concavity betrays itself as a subtle easing of resistance, a place where the tool seems to glide for a fraction of a second too freely. These are feelings that have no words, a tactile language that exists only between you and the glass. You spend hours like this, a blind man in a sunlit room, chasing ghosts that only you can feel, your entire being poured into the pursuit of a flatness so perfect it cannot be perceived, only intuited. Your back screams in protest, your fingers grow numb from the constant pressure, but you persist, lost in the whispering rhythm of your work. Days blend into a week, and the week blends imperceptibly into another. Your life settles into a monastic routine. You wake before dawn, the air in your small sleeping loft cold and sharp in your lungs. You eat a simple breakfast of hard bread and cheese, washing it down with weak, lukewarm ale because the water from the canal is not safe to drink. Then you descend to the workshop. The smell is the first thing that greets you, a permanent part of the air now. The resinous scent of the pitch that holds the lens, the damp, earthy smell of the wet abrasives, and the faint, metallic tang of the iron tools, all layered over the ever-present aroma of linseed oil and beeswax. You work until midday, when the bells ring out, signaling a time for rest. You work again until the light begins to fail, your movements becoming slower, more automatic, as fatigue settles deep into your bones. It is a life of profound repetition, a meditation enacted not with prayer beads, but with glass and grit. During one of these midday breaks, the ache in your lower back becomes a persistent, demanding throb. You straighten up slowly, a groan escaping your lips, and walk to the one place in the workshop that offers a view of the outside world, the large, leaded, glass window overlooking the canal. You push open the casement, and the sights and sounds of Delft rush in, a sudden sensory flood after the focused quiet of your work. The air outside is thick, humid, and alive with smells you had forgotten. The pungent, fertile scent of the canal water, a mixture of mud, decaying plants, and the waste of a city. You see the reflection of the sky, a brilliant, impossible blue, fractured into 100 pieces by the diamond, shaped panes of glass. A lumbering barge, low in the water, and laden with barrels of what you guess is beer from a nearby brewery, is being poled slowly down the center of the canal. A man, his face weathered and red from the sun, leans his entire body weight into a long wooden pole, his muscles straining as he pushes against the muddy bottom. His journey is one of immense effort and slow, deliberate progress. Your eyes follow the barge, but your attention is snagged by what it leaves behind. The wake spreads out from its hull in slow, widening V-shapes, a series of gentle ripples that travel across the canal's surface. You watch, mesmerized, as these ripples reach the far bank. The perfect reflection of the tall, gabled rooftops opposite your workshop begins to tremble. The straight lines of the brickwork, the clear rectangles of the windows, the sharp peak of a roof, they all dissolve into shimmering, chaotic motion. A straight line becomes a dancing serpent, a solid wall lichens, its colors blending and swirling. Light, which had been traveling in a straight and predictable path from the buildings to your eye, is now bent, scattered, and distorted by the temporary disruption of the water. It is a moment of fleeting, accidental beauty. The chaos is captivating. For that one instant, the ordered world of Delft, a city built on straight lines and right angles, is transformed into a transient, impressionistic painting, a dream of a city. And as you stand there, one hand still covered in a fine, grey paste of water and emery, a thought forms unbidden and quiet. You contemplate the simple truth before you. The rippling water is bending light. The piece of glass on your workbench, the focus of your entire existence for weeks, is also designed to bend light. They are two answers to the same question. The water does it with a chaotic, unpredictable, and temporary grace. It takes reality and shatters it into a beautiful, fleeting lie. Its beauty is in its imperfection, its constant motion, its refusal to show you the same image twice. But your lens is different. Your work is a crusade against that very chaos. You are spending your days, your energy, your very life force in a battle to create the opposite, a tool of focused, permanent, and absolute precision. Your goal is to bend light with such perfect control that it reveals a truth deeper than what the naked eye can see. You seek not to distort, but to clarify, to take the unseen and make it seen. One bends light into fleeting art, the other bends light into lasting knowledge. You look from the dancing, distorted reflections on the canal to the quiet, opaque disc on your lathe, and you wonder with a sincerity that surprises you if one is truly superior to the other. Is a lifetime spent in the pursuit of perfect focus a better life than one spent simply appreciating the beautiful distortions? Does the hidden world of the infinitely small, which you hope to reveal, hold more wonder than the visible world, warped into a momentary masterpiece by the wake of a passing barge? The question hangs in the humid air, a quiet counterpoint to the gentle shushing sound that awaits you. There is no easy answer. You are a craftsman, not a philosopher. Your path is already chosen, your purpose set in glass. With a sigh, feeling the weight of the question settle within you, you pull the window shut, muffling the sounds of the city once more. You turn back to the bench, back to the patient, whispering rhythm of your work, your brief glimpse of the infinite, whole only strengthening your resolve to perfect the microscopic part. The last faint whisper of the finest emery dust has fallen silent. For weeks, that sound, a soft and continuous shushing like a receding tide, was the central rhythm of your life. It has settled deep in your bones, a physical memory of the patient, abrasive work that has shaped a disc of glass into a perfect curve. You can still feel the echo of that gentle friction in your fingertips, the language of the surface you learned to read with your eyes closed. The memory of your break by the window, watching the chaotic ripples of the canal distort the light, still lingers in your mind. That was a question of grand, fleeting beauty versus focused, permanent precision. Now, that question is set aside. The argument is over. The time for shaping has passed. Before you on the worn leather of your workbench lies the result of all that labor, a small, unassuming circle of glass. It holds the ideal form, a mathematically perfect segment of a sphere, yet it is blind. The light of the workshop does not pass through it, but is held within, scattered and diffused, giving it the milky, translucent appearance of sea-worn quartz. It is a thing of perfect shape, yet without purpose. The soul of the lens is not yet present. The final, most delicate art awaits the art of polish. You rise from your stool, the movement slow, a deliberate untangling of stiff muscles. The first act of this new stage is not one of creation, but of purification. You take a clean linen cloth and meticulously wipe down every surface of your workbench. The fine, grey paste of glass and emery, the residue of weeks of grinding, must be completely banished. A single stray grain of a coarser grit, almost invisible to the eye, could ruin everything now. It would be like a boulder tearing through a tranquil garden, gouging a scratch so deep that you would have to return to the very first stages of grinding to remove it. You shudder at the thought. Your modern mind, accustomed to disposability and starting over, struggles to grasp the weight of this single, continuous effort. There is no undo button here. There is only the painstaking accumulation of progress or the catastrophic loss of weeks of work. You clean your hands as well, scrubbing them in a basin of cool water until you are certain no abrasive particle clings to your skin or under your nails. You dry them on a different, softer cloth. The workshop feels different now. Quieter, cleaner. The air, no longer hazed with the fine dust of silica and emery, smells only of the familiar comforts of linseed oil, beeswax, and the cold, damp stone of the old building. It is a space prepared for a ceremony. With the bench cleared, you retrieve your polishing tool. It is a humble thing, a simple block of dark hardwood, its surface planed perfectly flat. From a small wooden box, you take a piece of the softest black felt, likely cut from the remnants of a hatter's finest work. It has a dense, uniform pile, with no discernible weave. You warm a small disc of pitch over a low flame, the resinous, almost incense-like smell a familiar part of the ritual. You press the felt onto the pitch-covered tool. ensuring it adheres perfectly without a single wrinkle or bump. This tool, this polisher, is now an extension of your hand, but far more sensitive. Its purpose is not to abrade, but to caress. Your final ingredient sits in a small stoneware pot. You open it, and inside is a powder, dense and white, and so fine it seems almost to behave like a liquid, shifting in a cloud if you breathe on it too heavily. This is tin oxide, or putty powder, as the craftsmen call it. To you, it looks like nothing more than flour or chalk dust. It's hard for you to reconcile its simple appearance with its profound alchemical purpose. This powder, when mixed with nothing more than pure water, is what will bring the gift of sight to the glass. You take a clean fingertip and touch it. It feels impossibly smooth, almost greasy, yet utterly dry. It is the gentlest of all abrasives, so gentle that its work can hardly be called abrasion at all. You place the milky lens back onto the lathe, securing it with a touch of warm pitch. You take a deep breath, a conscious effort to slow your heart and steady your hands. All the work before this, the choosing of the glass, the rough shaping, the week upon week of grinding with ever finer grits, was a matter of force and removal. You were a sculptor taking away everything that was not a lens. Now your role changes. You are no longer a sculptor, but a harmonizer. You take the polisher in your hand, dampen the felt with a few drops of clean water from a ceramic bowl, and add the smallest pinch of the white tin oxide. You spread it into a thin, even paste across the felt surface. Then, you bring the tool to the spinning glass. There is almost no sound. Where before there was the constant shush, shush, shush of grinding, now there is only the faintest, wet sigh. It's the sound of the felt gliding across the surface of the glass, a whisper so quiet you can hear the distant cry of a gull over the canals, the rumble of a cart on the cobblestones outside. You can hear your own breathing, slow and steady, a rhythm you consciously match to the work. Your movements change as well. The straight, steady back and forth strokes of grinding are gone. Instead, your hand begins to trace slow, deliberate, overlapping circles. A gentle, even pressure is key. Too much, and you risk deforming the perfect curve you worked so hard to achieve. Too little, and the polishing will take an eternity, or not work at all. Your arm becomes a pendulum, your shoulder the pivot. The motion is fluid, patient, and unending. As the circles continue, your mind, no longer occupied by the loud feedback of grinding, is free to wander. You begin to contemplate the process on a level invisible to your eyes. You are not really removing glass anymore, not in any meaningful sense. You are engaged in an act of ordering. The grinding process, even with the finest emery, left the surface of the lens as a chaotic landscape of microscopic peaks and valleys. It is a mountain range of infinitesimally small scratches, each one catching the light and scattering it in a different direction. This is why the lens is opaque. It is a chaos of surfaces. The tin oxide particles are so fine, and the pressure of the felt so gentle that they do not create new scratches. Instead, they begin to shear the very tops off those microscopic peaks, flowing into the valleys and smoothing the entire terrain. You are not digging down, you are leveling up. You are coaxing the chaos into a state of perfect, uniform smoothness. It is an act of persuasion, not force. Each slow, circular pass of the polisher convinces millions of jagged edges to lie down, to align, to harmonize, until they form a single, unified plane. A surface so perfectly smooth that light will have no choice but to pass through it, entirely unimpeded, its path bent only by the perfect curve you have created. You think of it as calming a storm on a microscopically small sea. An hour passes, marked only by the shifting angle of the light coming through the high window. Your shoulder begins to burn with a dull, steady ache. This is not the ache of heavy labor, but of sustained, focused control. It is the fatigue of a surgeon or a scribe. You stop, lifting the polisher away. You unmount the lens and carefully clean the white paste from its surface with a soft, damp cloth. You hold it up to the light. At first, you feel a flicker of disappointment. It still looks largely the same, a disc of milky glass. But then you look closer, tilting it just so. Right in the center, a spot no larger than a pinhead seems darker. Less milky. It has a depth the rest of the surface lacks. It is the first hint of a gleam, the very first promise of the clarity to come. It's enough. That tiny speck of progress is the fuel that will power you for the next hour. You remount the lens, reapply a fresh speck of water and tin oxide, and begin again. The slow, circular dance continues. The faint sigh of the felt on glass once more fills the quiet room. You fall into a state of deep focus, a trance, like condition where time seems to liquefy and flow past you unnoticed. The world outside your window ceases to exist. There is only the feel of the tool in your hand, the subtle drag of the felt against the glass, and the steady rhythm of your own breathing. You think about the paradox of your work. You are creating an instrument designed to reveal a hidden world of staggering complexity and detail. Yet the process of its creation demands the absolute simplification of your own world. Your entire existence must narrow to this single, repetitive motion. To create the means of infinite focus, you must become infinitely focused yourself. Another hour crawls by. You stop again. You clean the lens, your movements practiced and efficient. You hold it to the light. The dark spot in the center has grown. It is now the size of a small pea, a growing pool of incipient clarity in a sea of milky white. You can almost see the faint outline of the window's leaded panes through it, though distorted and blurry. A quiet, profound satisfaction settles over you. This is progress you can see. The transformation is no longer a theoretical concept. It is happening right here, between your fingers. It is like watching a fog burn off a field at dawn, a slow, inevitable revealing of the world beneath. As the sun begins its slow descent across the Delft sky, casting long, golden fingers of light across your workbench, the transformation accelerates. The afternoon light is warmer, richer, and it seems to coax the clarity from the glass. You continue your work, the circular motions now so ingrained they are automatic, an extension of your will. With each passing half hour, the central area of black mirror, like polish, expands, eating away at the translucent haze. You stop one more time. The light outside is a deep, burnished gold. You wipe the lens clean, and this time you gasp. The change is undeniable. More than half the lens is now polished, a circle of such deep, dark clarity that it seems to drink the light. For the first time, you see a recognizable reflection on its surface. You see the dark shape of your own head, the bright square of the window behind you, the faint, warm glow of the tallow candle you lit as the shadows grew long. It is no longer just a piece of shaped glass. It is becoming a window. It is becoming an eye. The final hour of work is filled with a new energy, a sense of impending arrival. The fatigue in your shoulder is a distant note, drowned out by the excitement of completion. The last vestiges of the milky haze recede to the very edges of the lens, and then, with a few more patient, circular sweeps, they are gone. You feel a subtle change in the drag of the polisher, a new, almost frictionless slickness as it glides over a surface that is now, for all practical purposes, perfectly smooth. You lift the tool one last time and set it down. A profound silence descends upon the workshop, a quiet that feels earned. The work is done. You gently warm the pitch to release the lens, your fingers trembling slightly as you cradle the small piece of glass. It feels different in your hand now. It seems to have lost its stony opacity, its weight now feeling less like glass and more like a captured piece of distilled water. You clean it meticulously with a piece of the softest duskin, your own warm breath fogging its surface for a moment before vanishing completely, leaving behind an impossible clarity. You hold it up to the candlelight. The flame, seen through the lens, is no longer a blurry oval of light. It is a perfect, sharp, and inverted image, tiny and brilliant. The glass on your bench, which for weeks has only scattered and obscured the world, now gathers it, focuses it, and reveals it with a truth and precision that feels like a form of magic. The deep, internal gleam you had been working towards is finally there, a dark luster that speaks of perfectly ordered surfaces. Evening has fully settled over Delft, and in the growing dimness of your workshop, this small circle of glass in your palm seems to hold all the remaining light of the day, a tiny, silent star born of patience and polish. The sound is the first thing that tells you the work is over. For weeks, your world has been defined by sound. The harsh grating of coarse sand, the steady scraping of emery, and finally, the gentle, meditative shushing of the felt polisher. Now, that sound has stopped. The silence it leaves behind is so profound, so heavy, that it feels like a physical presence in the room. You remove your hands from the polishing tool, your fingers stiff and your palms stained with the fine white powder of tin oxide. The air, which has long carried the damp, earthy smell of wet abrasives, now seems thin and cool as it settles in the late evening light. On its surface, the glass gleams, no longer a milky, opaque disk but a vessel of deepening clarity. It is a transformation not just of material, but of purpose. The lens is no longer an object being acted upon. It is now an object ready to act, to gather the scattered light of the world and bend it to a single, focused point. You have spent countless hours coaxing chaos into order, and now, in the quiet dimness of your workshop, you feel the shift. The long, patient argument is over. The glass has finally agreed with you. You take a deep breath, the first one that feels entirely free of tension. The muscles in your shoulders and back, coiled into a permanent knot from leaning over your workbench, send a dull, familiar ache through your body. This is the posture of your craft, a physical toll you pay without a second thought. You reach for a small wooden tool to carefully pry the lens from the dollop of pitch that has held it fast to the lathe. It releases with a soft, satisfying pop, and then it is in your hand. It rests in the center of your palm, a small, solid piece of stillness. You are struck, as you always are, by its coolness. Because glass is a slow conductor of heat, it holds the chill of the evening air, a stark contrast to the warmth of your own skin. It feels heavier than it looks, a concentration of effort and time that has given it a density beyond mere material. You close your fingers over it, the smooth, perfect curve of its surface pressing into your palm. This is no longer simply a piece of Venetian crystal. It is potential made real. It is a new eye for the world, and it is yours. Before it can be used, it must be cleaned. This final act is a ritual, as important as any of the stages of grinding or polishing that came before it. You rise and walk to a small wooden chest in the corner of the workshop. Inside, wrapped in a linen cloth, is a piece of duskin. It is impossibly soft, the color of cream, and reserved for this purpose alone. You would no more use a common rag to wipe this lens than you would use canal water to polish it. You carry the soft leather back to your bench and lay it flat. You place the lens in the center and gently fold the duskin over it. Your motions are slow, deliberate circles, the same motions you used for polishing. But now there is no abrasive, only the gentle persuasion of the leather absorbing the last residues of oil and dust. You hold it up to the light filtering through the window, your breath fogging its surface for just a moment, before vanishing completely, leaving behind nothing but flawless transparency. There is no grand fanfare, no cry of discovery. There is only this quiet, profound sense of completion, a feeling that settles deep in your chest like a warm stone. In a world of noise and commerce, of ships and trade flooding the canals of Delft, you have created a small piece of perfect silence. Now it needs a home. A lens this small is useless on its own. It requires a housing to hold it steady, to position it correctly before the eye. You have already prepared it. Weeks ago, during a break from the monotonous hours of grinding, you crafted a simple holder from a small sheet of brass. You retrieve it from a drawer in your workbench. It is a simple thing. 2 small plates of brass with a hole drilled through their centers, held together by 3 tiny, hand-filed screws. The metal is cool and smells faintly metallic and oily. You think of the men in the city who work with metal all day, the blacksmiths with their roaring forges, the armorers with their ringing hammers. Your work with metal is different. Quiet, precise, patient. It is the work of a watchmaker, not a blacksmith. You place the lens carefully into the small recess you fashioned in the bottom plate. It fits perfectly. You then place the top plate over it and reach for a small screwdriver, its wooden handle worn smooth by your grip. The screws are no bigger than a grain of rice. Your whole body becomes still as you focus on this tiny, delicate task. You hold your breath as you turn the first screw, feeling for the moment the threads catch. The slightest slip, a moment of too much pressure, and you could chip the edge of the lens, ruining weeks of labor in a single, careless instant. You feel a familiar tension in your neck, the same tension you feel when making the first, most critical cuts into a raw block of glass, 1 screw seats. Then the second, then the third. You tighten them just enough to hold the lens secure, the brass forming a solid, protective ring around the fragile glass. It feels right. The warm, golden color of the metal is a perfect contrast to the cold, invisible clarity of the lens it holds. The object is complete. Your mind, a modern mind trapped in this quiet century, buzzes with possibilities. The urge is almost overwhelming. You want to rush outside, to scoop a single drop of water from the canal, place it on a sliver of glass, and press this new eye to it, with a certainty that feels like a memory from another life, that an entire world teems within that single drop. Creatures of unimaginable shape and motion, a universe of life invisible to all of humanity. It is the great secret you carry. The temptation to unlock it, to be the first to truly see it with this new, perfect instrument, is a physical pull, but you resist. That can wait. That is the work of the lens. The first moment belongs not to what the lens can show you, but to what it is. It deserves a simpler, purer test. A test of light itself. There is a single candle burning on your desk, its flame a teardrop of golden light against the growing twilight. Wax candles are a luxury, but you find their steady, clean flame preferable to the sputtering, smoky light of cheaper tallow. You pick up the newly housed lens and walk towards it. The workshop is filled with soft, dancing shadows, the familiar shapes of your tools and benches made strange and fluid by the flickering flame. Light, you realize, is a wild and chaotic thing in your world. It moves and shifts and is never truly still. Your life's work is an attempt to tame it. You hold the small brass instrument up, positioning it between the candle and the far stone wall of your workshop. You adjust the distance, moving it slowly back and forth. At first, there is only a blurry smear of light on the cool grey stone. But as you find the precise focal length, the blur contracts, sharpens, and coalesces. Suddenly, there on the wall is a single, sharp, unwavering point of light. It is a tiny, perfect star projected onto the stone. It is so intense, so pure, that it seems more real than the flickering flame that is its source. You stare at it, mesmerized. Your lens has taken the unsteady, dancing light of the candle and focused all of its scattered energy into one tiny, brilliant point of absolute stability. In a room full of moving shadows, you have created a single point of stillness. It is order from chaos. It is clarity from confusion. You feel a quiet satisfaction that runs deeper than simple pride. You have not just made a tool. You have demonstrated a principle. You have proven that, with the right curve, the right polish, the world's frantic energy can be brought into perfect, singular focus. Satisfied with this first test, you turn from the candle and walk to the window. The sun has set, but the western sky still holds a faint, bruised purple glow. The street below is quiet. The day's work done. The reflections of the gabled houses across the canal shimmer in the dark, placid water. You could point your lens out at the world, at the distant steeple of the new kirk or the rigging of a ship moored down the canal, but you choose a subject far closer. A subject you have seen every day of your life, one so familiar it is practically invisible. You raise the brass eyepiece and peer at the worn cuff of your own wool sleeve, and the world dissolves. For a moment, you are lost. You have ceased to see a sleeve, ceased to see cloth at all. You have fallen into another landscape entirely. Before your eye is a miniature forest, a dense, tangled jungle of individual fibers, each one a thick, twisted trunk catching the last of the fading daylight. You see not a solid plain of blue wool, but a chaotic lattice of these threads, woven over and under one another. Some fibers are thick and coarse, others are thin and frayed at their ends, like splintered wood. The dye, you notice, is not uniform. Some fibers are a deep, rich indigo, while others are paler, almost gray, revealing the inconsistencies of the dyeing process that are completely invisible to the naked eye. In the valleys between these woven trunks, shadows gather, creating a sense of immense depth and texture. You move the lens slightly, and the landscape scrolls past your vision. You are a giant, striding over a forest of wool. You can follow the path of a single fiber as it dives beneath another, only to emerge moments later. You see a tiny speck, a particle of dust or a grain of sand from your day's work, clinging to one of the fibers like a boulder lodged against a tree. To your normal eye, your cuff is simply a piece of worn, familiar clothing. Through this lens, it is a world of staggering complexity and detail. It possesses a structure, an architecture you had never imagined. The revelation is silent, personal, and lands with the force of a physical blow. You lower the lens, and the world snaps back into its familiar shape. It is just your sleeve again, blue, frayed wool. You look from the cuff to the lens in your other hand, and back again. A slow, profound realization washes over you. You understand, in a way you never have before, that the world you see every day is a simplification. It is an edited version, presented to you by the limitations of your own eyes. You have spent your life looking at the surface of things, at the cloth, but not the fibers, at the wood, but not the grain, at the water, but not the life within it. You have just pierced that veil. You have taken your first step into a hidden reality that exists alongside your own, a reality of infinite detail that has been here all along, waiting patiently to be seen. A deep sense of peace settles over you, a contentment that has nothing to do with wealth or fame, and everything to do with this quiet act of seeing. Your hands do not tremble. Your heart does not race. There is just a calm, centered feeling of a task perfectly done and a purpose perfectly realized. You have not conquered the world. You have not uncovered a secret that will change the course of nations. You have simply built a window. And for the first time, you have truly looked through it, not at something distant and grand, but at something intimate, common, and close at hand. And in doing so, you have discovered that there is no such thing as an ordinary object. There is only the vast, unexamined beauty of the infinitely small, and you now have the key. You hold the small brass instrument in your palm, feeling its weight, its coolness, and the immense, quiet power locked within its perfect, transparent heart. The satisfying weight of the finished lens, now safely nestled in its simple brass housing, still lingers in your palm. Hours have passed since you first held it to the light, since you peered through it and saw the world transformed. Not a grand, sweeping change, but a quiet, profound revelation in the miniature. The sight of your own woolen cuff becoming a forest of individual fibers, each a testament to the weaver's craft, has settled deep within you. It wasn't a shock, but a confirmation. A quiet sense of completion, pure and unwavering, has filled the corners of your workshop, softer and more pervasive than the fading light of the afternoon sun. The goal of weeks, of months, of a lifetime of patient effort, rests in your hand, a small, solid piece of clarity. And with this completion comes a stillness you had not anticipated, a gentle pause in the relentless rhythm of your work. The day's labor is done. The lens is perfect. Now, the silence that follows asks a question you have not yet considered. What comes next? A clear, moonless night has descended upon Delft, draping the gabled rooftops and quiet canals in a deep velvet darkness. The air, when you finally unlatch the heavy oak door to your small courtyard, is cold and sharp, carrying the clean scent of frost and the damp, earthy smell of the nearby water. It's a profound cold, a dampness that feels unique to this city built on water. And it bites at your cheeks and the exposed skin of your wrists. You pull your woolen coat tighter around your shoulders, the familiar scratch of the fabric a small comfort against the chill. Your courtyard is not a place of manicured beauty. It is a workspace, enclosed by high brick walls that still hold the faint warmth of the day's sun. The flagstones beneath your feet are uneven and slick with a thin film of moisture. In one corner sits a rain barrel, its surface reflecting the pinpricks of distant stars, and in the other, a stack of firewood waits patiently for the morning. From beyond the walls, you can hear the deep, resonant chime of the new kirk, marking the late hour. It's a sound so familiar, it has become part of your own heartbeat, a steady metronome for the quiet life you lead. This is a darkness a person from the future could never truly understand. There is no ambient glow from street lamps, no wash of electric light bleeding up from the horizon to pale the night sky. The only light comes from the heavens above and from the single, flickering candle you left burning on your workbench, its warm, golden rectangle faintly visible through the workshop window. The result is a startling, almost overwhelming clarity in the sky. The stars do not twinkle meekly. They burn with a fierce, cold intensity against a backdrop of absolute black. Your gaze is drawn upward, past the sharp angles of the neighboring rooftops, into the infinite, glittering expanse. The great, silvery river of the Milky Way is not a subtle smudge, but a breathtaking celestial cloud, a dense and brilliant path of light that splits the sky in two. An old, familiar habit stirs within you, a phantom itch in your fingers. You can feel the muscle memory of your life's work pulling at you, even now. The part of you that is the craftsman, the investigator, urges you to turn back inside. Your mind begins to lay out the steps, a ritual performed so many times it requires no conscious thought. You would go to your cabinet and retrieve a clean glass slide. You would take the small pipette and draw a single, perfect drop of water from the rain barrel in the corner of the courtyard. You would place it on the slide, perhaps adding a speck of dust from the floor or a fallen leaf fragment, something to give your new lens a world to explore. You can almost feel the smooth, cool metal of the microscope's focusing knob under your thumb, can almost see the frantic, invisible life that you know is teeming within that single drop of water. This is your purpose. This is what the lens was made for. to reveal the hidden, to chart the unknown, to bring order and understanding to the chaotic world of the infinitesimal. But tonight, for the first time in as long as you can remember, that pull feels weak, that purpose strangely distant. The thought of leaning over your bench, of narrowing your entire world down to that tiny, illuminated circle, feels constricting. Your shoulders, which have been hunched over a grinding lathe for weeks, feel a deep-seated desire to remain straight. Your eyes, strained from peering at microscopic details, feel a profound relief in simply gazing into the unfocused distance. The satisfaction you felt earlier in the day, the quiet peace of a task perfectly done, seems to have left you with a new kind of freedom. You are not a craftsman with a job to do tonight. You are simply a man standing under the vastness of the night sky. A different impulse guides you. It is not a thought, but a feeling, a gentle curiosity that unwinds the tension in your shoulders and lifts your chin. You look down at the small instrument in your hand. The brass is cold against your skin, its weight a dense, comforting presence. It is a tool of immense power, designed to pierce the veil of the unseen. But what if its purpose was not only to look down? What if clarity was not just about magnification, but about perception itself? Slowly, deliberately, you raise the small brass, housed lens to your eye. The metal is a cold circle against your brow. You close your other eye, shutting out the courtyard, leaving only the lens and the night sky. At first, the view is a disappointment to the part of you that expects miracles of magnification. The stars are not larger. The moon, were it out, would not suddenly reveal mountains and craters. This is not a telescope. You know the physics of it better than any man alive. The focal length is all wrong. Designed to focus on a subject mere millimeters from its surface, not on objects so far away that their light has been traveling since before you were born. A lesser man might dismiss the experiment, lower the lens, and return to the familiar comfort of the microscopic world. But you keep looking. You allow your eye to adjust, to accept what it is seeing rather than what it expects to see. And then you notice it. The lens is doing something else. Something you hadn't intended, but which is no less profound. It is not making the stars larger, but it is making them brighter. It is gathering light. You fix your gaze on a patch of sky that appears to the naked eye to be almost empty, a dark space between two brilliant stars. But through the lens, that emptiness resolves itself. Faint, almost imperceptible stars, previously invisible, now appear as tiny, sharp pinpricks of definite light. The lens, in its perfect, clear curve, is acting as a tiny bucket, catching the faint, ancient photons that have been scattered across the vastness of space and focusing them into a single, coherent point for your eye to receive. Your breath catches in your throat. You sweep the lens slowly across the sky, a tiny, handheld window into a deeper reality. You point it toward the great, sprawling river of the Milky Way. To your naked eye, it is a luminous cloud, a beautiful, ethereal smear of light. But through your perfect lens, the cloud begins to break apart. You can see that it is not a cloud at all, but a concentration of stars so numerous and so distant that their individual lights blend together. Your lens cannot resolve all of them, not even a fraction of them, but it resolves enough to reveal the truth. The blur of the infinite is giving way, just slightly, to granulated, specific light. You are seeing not a solid thing, but a collection of individuals, a population, an impossibly vast city of suns. You think of the worlds you have discovered in a drop of water. The frenetic, darting life, the strange, beautiful geometries of algae. The sense of a universe operating on a scale entirely separate from your own. You have spent your life perfecting a tool to see that world, to prove its existence, to chart its invisible continents. And now, holding that very same tool, you are looking in the opposite direction, at a scale so immense it is equally incomprehensible. And you see a subtle, profound connection. The tiny, swimming creature in the canal water and the distant, burning star in the heavens are both, in their own way, invisible. Both exist beyond the normal range of human senses. Both require a special kind of stillness, a special kind of attention, to be perceived at all. You have always thought of your work as a journey inward and downward, into the hidden machinery of the world. But now you see it is also a journey outward and upward. A deep, quiet peacefulness settles over you, more profound than the satisfaction of a finished task. It is the peace of understanding, the quiet question that has hummed beneath the surface of your life, the tension between focusing on the infinitely small and seeing the infinitely large, finds its answer in this moment, here in the cold, silent courtyard. They are not opposing forces. One is not a distraction from the other. Your pursuit of a perfect, microscopic view has not caused you to lose sight of the unmagnified beauty of the universe. On the contrary, it has given you the very tool you needed to appreciate it more fully. The purpose of clarity, you realize, is not just discovery or analysis. It is not just about seeing the individual fibers in a piece of cloth or the tiny creatures in a drop of water. That is only part of it. The true, ultimate purpose of clarity is to remove the obstacles that stand between you and wonder. Your lens does not add anything to the night sky. It simply removes the limitations of your own eye. It allows the universe, in all its staggering, silent grandeur, to speak for itself just a little more clearly. You lower the lens from your eye, and the sky returns to its familiar state. The faint stars you just saw vanish back into the darkness. The Milky Way becomes a soft, beautiful cloud once more. But it is not the same. You now know what lies hidden within that luminous mist. You have seen the truth of it, however fleetingly. The knowledge has changed your perception forever. You look at your hand, at the small brass instrument resting there. It is no longer just a microscope. It is a key that unlocks the unseen, whether it is hidden an inch from your nose or across an ocean of unimaginable time and space. You think of your quiet workshop, of the years spent in patient, dusty labor. The scraping of the grinding, the gentle shushing of the polish, the solitary days and evenings spent in pursuit of a single, perfect curve in a piece of glass. You never saw it as a spiritual quest, only as a craft, a job to be done with diligence and care. Yet, here you are, standing under the immensity of creation, and you feel a sense of connection so deep it feels like prayer. You have spent a lifetime perfecting a way to see the world in a grain of sand, only to find at the end of it all that the same skill allows you to see heaven in a wild flower and to hold infinity in the palm of your hand. The lens, your life's work, rests coolly in your palm. You do not feel the urge to rush back inside and record your findings, or to build a better instrument to see more. For the first time, you feel no urge to discover, only to observe. To stand here in the cold, clear air of a Dutch night and simply be a witness. The deep, peaceful wonder of gazing unobscured into the infinite is, you now understand, the final perfect purpose of all your focus.